there supposedly, and I stayed 23 years. So yeah, I met Tom briefly, I guess. It was more of an opposition coach meeting. We had the chance to talk a few times, but then I met Dean Holden in 2003 when we started coaching together at U of C, and that's and another chapter too. So yeah.
Now, Tom, do you remember your first meeting and then how you got connected? Because the work you did with Johanny Walston, the last book you wrote, 2002, with Johanny, I've been looking at it because we had a coach summit, and everything you're doing is what John's advocating, and you were thinking of it with Johanny back in that day. Now I'm talking late 1990s and early 2000. And so what you were doing that long ago, both of you, and I'm sure Dean got into it that way, it is sort of the popular movement today that is basically teaching hockey sense or sports IQ and thinking and solving problems. So, Tom, do you recall specifically when you ran into him and how you got connected and then, like sharks, sharing ideas?
Well, I think I was coaching the Mount Royal women, and John came and did a hockey school. We did the summer hockey school. Him and Dean both did it. I think I'd met him before that, and I know we had a few coach meetings talking about different ideas. And I don't know exactly when we first met, but yeah. But John's ideas are very similar to Yuso and mine.
Okay.
You know, and I remember going to Hockey Canada talking to the bigwigs there, and Johanny was visiting in Calgary, and they kind of met with him, and we're sitting there, and I'm looking at them, and he's talking about using games and all this, and I could see this glazed look in their eyes, you know, that it didn't register in their minds whatsoever as being important to be using games and thinking and all that sort of thing. And John and Dean were two of the only ones that kind of thought the same way. So yeah, it was very, 2003-ish, around like that, I think.
Yeah.
Now, John, I want to let you know there's a gentleman, and Dean, do you know Greg Revac, Dean? Your sound's off, Dean.
Yeah, well, there. I've heard the name. I'd have to know more about him to know if I know him.
What I'm going to tell you is, it's like he's invented this. Okay, if you could shut off your sound, other people, we won't get the echo. So Tom and Dean, there. Okay, that's good. No echo. Anyway, Greg, his site, and it's the site of the day, popular around North America. He works with Darryl Belfry closely, who's the guru of elite coaching and developing elite athletes. He's doing it, so you should. And I have sent links out of his sports. It's called Hockey IQ, his site. I suggest you join and listen to it. I think you might smile a lot because you've heard and thought of everything he's saying. But it's a new language to the hockey world out there, and it's one that has alienated us over the years. So I think, Gene, you should write that down because he's in the business of that concept and really promoting it well. He provides excellent videos to support it, talks about whistleless practices and all those kinds of things. So, Dean, how did you meet John? And do you remember the first time, or was it just like in the rink, period?
Our first date I distinctly remember it, Wally, because Julie Healy had asked me to coach with her at U of C with the women's team, and I think John's identified the date. It was around 2003, and I had met a bunch of the players that summer at a triathlon out in Chestermere, and I'd overheard them talking, and I saw some U of C dyno apparel on them, and we struck up a conversation, and they said, geez, we really need a coach. We've got one, but we're trying to recruit people because she doesn't want to do it. And I found out, so I contacted Julie and said, I'd be interested. I've never coached female hockey before. And, sure enough, I started to help out. Our first practice that year in September, once the semester started, we were saddled with early morning practices because we were female hockey, and therefore we were third-class citizens. So we were at the Oval Monday to Wednesday, sorry. We were there at 6 a.m. and we were on the ice before 7. And for those of you that know the Oval, there's a long walk and you got to go downstairs and underneath all the pipes and the speed skating track, and you pop up in the middle. We were on the South Rink. So we trooped down to the South Rink, and it's me, Julie, another assistant by the name of Doreen Sheets, who I'd met in the Kootenays years ago. And we're at practice, and I noticed there's this guy sitting up in the stands watching. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. It's, not even 7 a.m. There's some guy up there watching. Anyway, we go through practice, and I don't know if that's normal or not. It's my first practice. And I go over to Julie toward the end of practice, and I say, who's this guy watching? Like, is this a parent or, who is this? And she goes, well, his name's John, and he started watching a while ago, like last year. And he came to talk to me. He wanted to be an assistant coach. He presented me with his bio, but I'm just not too sure. And anyway, so practice finished, and he was up in the stands, and I don't think I talked to him that first day, but I noticed him, and then he was there on the Tuesday, and then he was there on the Wednesday, and I'm going, this guy, for a guy to show up at a practice that early in the morning with no apparent tangible reward that I could determine. And I was starting to get to know Julie and Doreen and the team. And I went to Julie during practice and I said, why don't we talk to this guy again and see if he wants to get involved? Like, I don't know in what capacity, but let's talk to him. And she goes, if you want to talk to him, go ahead. And if he wants to come in, talk to him a little bit, come talk to me and we'll make a decision. So I went up to John, I introduced myself, I think. And like I say, I think it was after that third practice. And, we started to chat and I said, yeah, let's have you come on out, and really got to know him better after that, because he wasn't just sitting up in the stands watching us anymore.
Well, Dean, I want to mention we've had Kim McCullough and Rick Puttock. And Sammy Joe Small has just joined as well. We're just talking about how we met John years ago over the years. He's been in more hockey rinks studying and watching different teams practice and than anybody I know since. And we were talking just now, Dean, that would have been, in the early 2000s that John was there. You didn't know who he was, and he's a soccer guy. So he has a lot to offer the game, us as coaches, not just hockey coaches. But John, I just have to mention that when I heard from my daughter and son-in-law that you were working with Vanessa and the University of Manitoba Bison soccer team and running practices for her, which is your wheelhouse. I was so thankful because I know what page you're on. I know you do stuff for the right reason, for the good of the game, but you do the X's and O's better than anybody. It's not deliberate. It's not do this, do that. It just allows for the inspiration of creative play. And I know all coaches are told about that, but with your presence and Vanessa, with her high level of certification and education, a doctorate in sports psychology plus coaching, to bring you on, I said, boy, am I happy my granddaughter is playing for her. So everybody here should have a pretty good idea of John's background. And John, the thing I didn't realize when I read your bio, and if I don't know if the people have, but I didn't realize that you were into the sort of the good of the game and the mission of doing what you do for the right reason and developing the characteristics of a good person as they play a sport. And that's why I created the Sharks. A lot of the X's and O's can come out of it, but most of it is teaching ethical coaching behaviors and getting parents to agree and understand, not letting the outcomes distract them from the process of achieving the outcome. So